Hi viewers, welcome back to the channel. Victus here. As you can see, for those that know what we are looking at right now, this is Combat Ops 2. And for those that don't know, this is one of the best war games. There's not too much on the internet about this beauty that we have here. If you go to the actual game developer channel, which is Panther Games, you're going to see there the actual tutorial. We are right now looking at the map of the first mission. The first mission is called Tutorial Return to St. Vith. I have a beautiful revelation here. This is completely free. You can download these directly on Steam and you will get the first 3 scenarios. This means that this is the core game before you decide to buy the actual DLCs. Now, this is not a tutorial, and this is pretty much showing more precisely to all of you that don't know about this, what is this and what you can expect pretty much. We're going to talk about what we can see on the screen, and of course, how do you get to a victory position here, what you can control, and understanding basically the topographic map that we're looking at, and looking at the units, and finally reviewing our plan. I'm going to include an exciting and effective way to evaluate the terrain, which is a different method that I found very useful. And it's something that all of us can use. The thing is that perhaps this video is going to be split in 2, but we're going to see. So as I mentioned before, we're going to concentrate right now in what options do we have on the actual wargame, how to use the interface, or what do we have in front of us. We're going to talk about a little bit about the units and useful information about units. So let's go to the first. So what options do we have? We have a lot of options. Down here we can see a lot of buttons. You have all the options here. For example, these are the controls. You click here and there is going to be a window here that is going to represent the button that you just click. We have tools. For example, here we have this one. We can move it here. We have the orders over here. I think it's very useful to have the option to dismiss some windows when you want. Then you have here an option to show units. As you can see, you have an option here to show objectives. You can hide the grid or unhide it. And then here we have different other buttons. Every single thing here, you can do it with your keyboard. And then here we have the menu. We can go to options, and then we have surrender and minimizing. So what do we control? We control time. We control units. So basically we are commanding an operation here, a military operation. And then we have represented here a map, which is a topographic map, which is a very commonly used on the military. And there is a lot of information on this type of maps. In this type of maps, we can see roads, we can see main roads, big roads, small roads, we can see highways. For example, this one here is a highway, this one here is a railway. We can see represented here urban areas and as well rivers. So everything is here. And then we have woodland, and of course we have bridges here. How are the units represented? Well, pretty much your units are going to look completely different from what you are seeing here. And I'm going to show you how do you change the units. In a few seconds, I'm going to do that. The units are represented here with these squares. Now, the interesting thing about this wargame is that you are not moving over hexes. You're pretty much moving over grids that represent 1 kilometer square. Every single square that is represented for each unit, by square I mean the actual figure that you see on screen, they are going to move by the factor of time, and you control the time over here. So as you can see, the units are represented with a symbol, with the name. There are as well different images here, and then the actual symbol. These are representing exactly military hierarchy. So you can see here companies, platoons, then you can see battalions, and if you see the enemies here, you can see as well companies of the enemies. Down here we can see more companies, and over here we see the division symbol over here. Now, as I mentioned before, a note on the military symbols that we can see here. Definitely these military symbols are not going to represent what you're going to see on your version of the wargame, because I have changed them. So how do you change this? You go to the menu, go to options, and over here you see the option that says use military symbols. If you click here, you're going to see the NATO symbols. If you are used to play war games such as Combat Mission, this is going to be more easy to understand and is going to be more precise because of the time period. So continuing, now we're going to talk about the useful information about the units and where you can find it. Now I'm going to dismiss these windows because right now they are not relevant. And over here, down here, I'm going to dismiss this one as well. Down here you see F5, unit info. If you click here, you're going to see different symbols that are going to change over the actual units. You can access these by the function keys F1 through F7. We're going to go one by one. F1 is representing the task. You see this pink square here, and this means that the unit is waiting orders. Then you go to F2, which is going to show you the route status. You go to strength, then you see this one, which is combat power, which I think is one of the most important data that you can get on the units. F5 is going to show you deployment, F6 the morale of the unit, and F7 ammunition. You can click again F7 and it's going to show you just the ammunition for artillery, just the ammunition for basic supply, the fuel if you click again, the supply line, and then again to ammunition. Okay, now let's answer the following questions in this section. How to achieve a victory? What do we control? And who are we controlling? So to answer the first question, how do we achieve victory? Well, it has victory points in which every single objective is going to give you those victory points and is simply a competition in between you and the opponent to get those achievement points. I'm going to show you right now here. If you go here and you click objectives, you're going to see the objectives of the actual scenario. The first objective, which is shown here, is of course destroy the enemy, and is going to give you 33. Now let's have into account that the victory is achieved by getting 100 achievement points or victory points. So if we click here, Steinbrook Bridge is the first objective of the actual situation. And then we have the other objective here, Lomos Villa, which is located on that hill over there in the north. Of course, we can see here that this is the CC A of the 4th division. There's the symbol of division, and we can see here that this is the division HQ. This is evidently the combat command able of the 4th division. Here we see the different battalions that are subordinate to the actual division. And then if we go here, we can see as well the HQs that are represented with these flags. This is the 1st Battalion HQ of the 318 Infantry Regiment. Here we see the 51st Armored Infantry Battalion HQ. And then we have here another battalion here represented with a tank, which is the 35 Tank Battalion HQ. But the question remains, who are we? So we are basically a Brigadier General, which is located over here in this tab. Here we can see the name of the actual person that we are representing here. So this is basically us, Herbert Al Ernest, which is the Brigadier General. And down here we can see small story of the life of this Brigadier General, which is actually a historical character. You can have a lot of fun and getting a lot of interesting facts reading about this. Now, because sometimes for newcomers it's a little bit difficult to understand the levels of command, I have included an amazing JPEG showcasing the military hierarchy starting from field army level down to team level. I'm going to leave it on the description. So here I have prepared a comparison based on 3 games that I think are perfect for this explanation. The reason that I selected these 3 games is because the 3 of them have basically the whole structure of the levels of command represented on the simulation. So the 3 games that I have selected for this explanation are Hearts of Iron 4, Command Ops 2, and Combat Mission. In Hearts of Iron 4, we have a symbolic representation of the region / theater of war and the army group. What I mean by symbolic representation is because even though they are on the wargame and you have in a certain way the ability to control the theater and the army group, you are not controlling it directly. So basically what we are controlling directly here in HOI 4 is the field army, the corps, and then we have the divisions and the brigades in a certain extent being controlled by the player. In the other hand, for Command Ops 2, we have the symbolic representation of the field army, because we know on the briefings that the army is symbolically represented on the mission. But what we have direct control on Command Ops 2 is the first level of command of a division. We have direct control on brigades and battalions. And on a certain extent, we have influence over companies and platoons. When we go with this structure to combat mission, we can now understand that in combat mission, we are symbolically represented by a battalion. You never see the battalion and control the battalion directly on combat mission, however, is still represented on the mission itself. What we are controlling then in combat mission is we have direct control over companies, platoons, sections, squads, and even teams. So now you see the relation between these three wargames in this explanation. Beginning with Hearts of Iron, we have the first level of command structure beginning with a theater of war and then going down to brigades. Then we have command ops with the army and then going down to platoons and companies. And finally, if you want a zoomed in experience, so to speak, we have combat mission that concentrates itself, even though we have battalions, within the area of companies, platoons, so on and so forth, down in the levels of command. So now let's go back to Command Ops 2. Now the next thing is the fact that the map is a topographic map that is commonly used on military operations. Topographic map is a representation of elevations and different landforms over the terrain. Here we can see that lighter colors represent high ground and darker colors are representing low ground. It's pretty much easy to understand what is the shape of the terrain on this area. For here we have the river here, which is the river, and here we have a valley, and then we have a slope over here and high ground in this side. The units that we are going to operate are located behind over this ridge, and then there is a slight slope over here, and then we have the enemy defense positions down here, almost on the valley and on the slope of the hill. This, of course, as well is a representation of woods, as you can see. Over here we see a representation of bridges, and up in here we can see a representation of small towns and villages, and even bigger urban areas over here. Now, if you right click, you're going to see information about the area that you are right clicking. Over here we can see a little bit of information about the degrees of the slope, and as well we see what is the movement of each of the units. For example, foot units have 49% of movement here. If we go down to the valley, we can see that the foot units have 5% and the motorized units 0%. Now that we know and understand what is the friendly units, or basically our units, we're going to check the enemy units. So these guys here, the gray guys, are the enemies. They have a representation of what they are on the symbol. We know that this is a company, but if you are unsure, you can check this here. And we know that, for example, this is an infantry, these guys are engineers, and this is a platoon. If you click here, you can confirm this. This is an engineer platoon. And here we have an engineer company as well as here. But the most important thing that we have to take into account when we are looking at enemy units, what we need to see is here in this tab, in general tab, if we click, for example, this guy, we can see the sighting age, which is current, and the reliability, which is vague. Now I'm going to touch on this topic just slightly because it's important to note what we can expect here. The reason that this information, this intelligence information is telling us that it is fake is because we are at night. So if you hover over here, you can see the picture of the situation. We can see that we are at night, the skies are clear, we can see a little bit of information about temperature, the ground, and the visibility, which is the thing that is determining the reliability of the recon. The visibility is 200 meters. This means that every one of these guys over here on the woods are not able to see further to 200 meters. And that is not counting if there is a reverse slope or a forward slope or whatever it is that is obstructing the visibility further than the actual conditions. So as everyone can see here, this is a very robust simulator. We can simulate this with different approaches. For example, we can give orders simply to the actual CCA and send all of the orders to the whole block, or we can go three levels down and then do it separately for each battalion, or we can even give orders to each platoon and each company, which is going to increase the micromanagement. This doesn't mean that it's not going to be possible. It is a little bit more difficult, but the real thing about ComOps 2 is the fact that you can give orders from divisions and battalions, and you can trust the AI to make a reasonable job on the decisions that the AI is going to take. In this area over here, we can see in the control panel, we can see something that is mostly overlooked, and I haven't seen anyone talking about what is this thing. So this thing here is the victory meter. So this thing is going to go to this side if we are losing, and going to this side if we are winning, as it is self-explanatory with this image. I wanted to include an exciting and effective different method of how to analyze the terrain situation. I'm going to do it in the next video, and hopefully this one has been a blast, because for me it was just that. This was Victus. See you in the next one.